a little late. Actually, I kind of forgot to hit the go live button. I didn't forget that this was happening. I just forgot to hit the button. Been really caught up in some of the things going on. We'll get to in a second. Cheers. I don't know how I feel about this angle. There's definitely like a light flare coming in from the lights on my left. I'm not sure how I feel about it. We'll see. See how it goes. Yeah, I got a little bit of Halloween going on there in the background. It's a grabber. Can't see him here unless I go like that, in which case he's much more in focus. But then I have a teddy bear over in the corner. Ooh, my stomach's growling. I have a teddy bear over in the corner to kind of set him off. I mean, offset him, not set him. You don't want to set off the grabber, especially if he's sitting there beefy and shirtless, just above the. Oh man, and now I'm literally just noticing now. So I changed some things. And I'm noticing now that I'm live, why one of the things I changed. I was like, well, why do I do this? Like, it's regarding light placement. I was like, why is this light here? This doesn't make sense. The traditional place for a main key light is, 45 degrees above, pointing down at you. I don't do that because I have super hooded eyebrows. And so it's just dark when I do that. So I usually have the light lower. And I'm just now realizing that. Can I start over? Can I go move the light, start over? Not worth it. I'm pretty anal when it comes to the positioning of lights. And now I'm kind of like, well, what is going on here in the back? No, I really didn't screen this. I didn't screen this well enough. Let's forget it and move on. Happy October 5th. October 5th. Less than 3 months left in the year. I think I talked about this before. It feels like it's 2023 already. A lot has gone down. And there's been a lot, like in the past week, that has caught my attention that I'm interested about. I thought maybe could bring up and yammer about this evening. If y'all are on board. If you're not, there's lots of other stuff you could be doing. And on top of that, it's kind of annoying to me that the H3 podcast has been running late more and more on Wednesdays. And I like to listen to that. And it butts right up against this. And then I'm, I don't like listening to stuff that's not live. I like listening to stuff that's live. Because you never know. You just never know. Here's another thing I really like about having this camera set up this way. I'm anal about positioning, as I've said before. And it would always be a pain in my ass to I would look at this camera and I would be like, the shelves aren't quite level in the camera view. It's not perfectly level with the bricks. If I turn the camera to fix that, then I'm going to be at an angle. And I already kind of, I have I sit at like a weird angle. I kind of like can't to one side. In my quest to eventually become the letter Q. And so I will always be like double checking, or I would in the past always be like double, triple checking the level on the tripod and the camera and make sure that it was level, and then fix everything to the level, right? But it's so easy, especially on a tripod, especially like it doesn't matter if the tripod is professional or not professional, like even a professional tripod. If you're on a wood floor, or, you got wires, you got carving, anything, it's fairly easy to knock something off level. But this camera now is full-time living on a gimbal, which means it doesn't freaking matter what happens to the tripod feet, because the gimbal will just dangle the camera plumb either way. So if there's a problem in the alignment, it's not just in case you were wondering, in case you were looking at this, and then I bet you a bunch of you were looking at this and you were like, or if you have in the past and looked at it and just been like, oh, it's really getting to my OCD that like this shelf and this shelf, they aren't lined up quite right, or the lines on the bricks aren't lined like that. At this point, that if that's a problem, that's all down to me, and the stuff in the background is not down to the camera. You can't blame the camera. You have to blame the camera operator. So yeah, anyway, episode 85, also when the light's up high, it accentuates the bags under my eyes. Jeez. Should have gone with my instinct. I was raising it and I was like, it's better for it to be higher. It's out of the way. This is, what you're taught, where the light should be, higher, pointed down. It doesn't bleed into the background as much. I've got it gridded. For those of you who don't know what a grid is, that is essentially it's a grid that you put over a light. I have a grid lying around here, a spare grid. Sure I do. Honestly, I don't have a grid lying around here. Is this what I'm doing? Looking for a grid? I don't have a grid lying around. Anyway, it helps make the light more directional, so it's not just spilling all over the place. A lot of people are like, oh, get it. Look, okay. Since I started talking about light, and there's a tangential relationship between light and what I want to ultimately be talking about. A lot of people think, it's just flood, scene with light, and then bring it back. Alternately, and this annoys me, and I don't think that I'm particularly great at this or anything, but it is annoying to me. Yeah, 85. Is this not episode 85? Did I screw up? Shoot. Maybe I screwed up. That's probably a more viable... Oh, 84. 84. Still 16 away. Anyway, so lights. I was talking about lights. I also want to talk about format, show format, future show format. Not right now. Right now, I want to talk about lights for a minute. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do when you're lighting a scene. Now, what a lot of people think is, and this is just about every YouTuber right now who has enough money to buy a decent camera or a good camera, they end up with the Sony A7S III. Okay. Fuck them, right? Fuck them. If you want a do-it-all camera and do it all pretty well, but especially a super low light camera, Sony A7S III is great. It's fantastic. But if you want a camera that actually can get you interesting looks and skin tones, don't go to the A7S III. Don't go to Sony at all. But they go to Sony because you can take a Sony camera. They have they've done this amazing thing with their photo sites. Their photo sites are huge. So they're essentially they have night vision, essentially, right? You can crank up the ISO on a Sony camera, and with its inbuilt noise reduction, which also I think looks like shit. If I don't see grain in an image, I I just don't like it. I just don't like it. There's a new movie with Florence Pugh coming out where it's the only movie that I've ever seen a trailer for where I thought they might have overdone the grain just a bit. The Watcher, I think it's called, or The Watch. The Watch or The Watcher. And I remember looking at that and I was like, yeah, love some grainy film. But one, and that looks like it might not actually be film grain, but it looks like it's probably digital. And two, like they really, really overdid it, which I understand, you sometimes have to overdo film grain if your goal is you want to look good on streaming services, because streaming services will take a nice grain pattern and turn it into a macro block. And it'll just look like shit. So anyway, so my point is what people do, I'm speaking broadly here. I've got my judgmental shit-eating grin on. Yeah, see, my lips too red. No, that's my lookup table. That's my fault. Anyway, so they're like, okay, well that's great because I can get a Sony A7S III or really any Sony camera, and I don't have to worry about lights. I could have almost no lights at all. I could do something like this, and it doesn't really matter. It's still great because Sony you can boost the ISO, boost the heck out of it until everything is nice and lit and flat. But that last bit is what really bothers me. Lit and flat. So what these sensors do is they take any small amount of light and they amplify it, right? And they're able to be super sensitive to any light that's scattering around anywhere. So you could take something like this and you could boost the ISO to the point where my skin is properly exposed. Something more like this, right? Where I now have this light that is in a very controlled way pointed at me. You'll notice when I turn it off, does it affect the background? Yeah, it does, but not that much, right? Like it affects the front of there's some metal stuff that's going to reflect, but I have it pointed in a way, I have it gridded so that it's not just shooting all over the place, right? Let's go back to the mood lighting for a moment. And I'll let my friend be in shot while I finish this talk about lighting. So they'll do something like, you don't have to light a scene very well, and you can just boost the heck out of the ISO. And Sony's amazing, incredible technology that they have with them. Oh, well, this is show stuff, but it just doesn't look right. Having that white stick out there. It's catching my hair light directly. So you boost the ISO on an image like this. You can see my knees too. I'm in shorts. I'm very casual tonight. I'm always casual. This is why those who work from home, I don't want to go back to work. And if I do go back to work, I'm going to go back to shirt and work in a t-shirt and fucking $10 boxer shorts that are like short. It's a weird hybrid of like shorts and boxer shorts. I don't know what they are. I just know they're cheap, which is awesome. Anyway, so you boost the light that you got. Like you would boost it so that my skin here was at like 60 or maybe 40 or 50 IRE, right? Now, you can maybe control the highlights, and that's fine. But what you end up doing is anywhere where there was shadow is you're elevating those shadows. And then maybe you put a gamma curve in to correct that, right? Or you make it so that your gamma curve corrects for that. But you can't actually do that, right? Like it's all about the signal chain, right? Like if you take a log image and then you put it into a gamma curve and then you try to raise the shadows after that, then you're just going to get like this like milky mush, right? So the order of operations really matters when you're processing an image. And my annoyance with the A7, the people who, let's just say those who don't care so much about lighting, which is everybody, except for I guess DPs, right? and people who have weird obsessions with light like I do. I had been informed in the past that I exhibit. Hey, where's my? That was a casual button up. That was a linen button up. That was casual. Yeah, Pivy, that was super casual. Anyway, so Q, I love your picture. That is great. I want to steal it. Here's my point. It's not just about like throwing light around everywhere and making it so everything is super bright, and then you have no dark areas in your image. It's about depth in your image, right? You want to have the super dark areas, and then you want to have the bright areas, but you want to keep those dark areas too, right? And if you don't do that, if you don't need to do that, like here, there's still dark areas here. It's a little bit washed out. It's a little bit washed out. I don't love what's happening back here. I don't love it. There's some spill going on. It's not my favorite. But what was my point? My point is I'm great. My point is I'm super anally retentive about lighting. And it annoys me when a camera company brings out a camera that is so good that it's just like, hey, you don't ever have to worry about lights again. Do you have a candle? If you have a candle, you can light your video using the new Sony a7S IV. The a7S IV, basically, like, it doesn't want light. Like, it's going to want you not to have any light at all. It's like a challenge. But Sony doesn't do good skin tones, right? So, I mean, look at what we got here. This is, there we go. That's the flat image. Well, it's not quite flat, but it's close to flat coming out of the Blackmagic cameras here. You can see it on both. This is flat. It's pretty flat. Like the difference between the highlights on my forehead and the skin is not that big. And you can see the shadows are, not that dark, right? You then add your lookup table and your color correction, right? That you can make yourself or you can buy packages of until it gets to where you want it to be. Don't go too far. Don't do this. Now it's crushed all the blacks. Now you say you've crushed all the blacks. You want to bring the gamma back up. It doesn't work. Can't do it, right? There's an order of operations. It matters. The order in which you do these things matters. What did I have that set at? 40? Something like that. I don't know. It was something like this. It might not have been this. It might have been a little more. This looks a little washed out, doesn't it? Let's see. Let's what happens if we turn the gamma and up the brightness. Oh, man. See? Now this is just over contrasty. That looks terrible. Let's just set everything back at 0. Yeah, good enough. Good enough for 12 of you that are watching. All right, let me say hi to everybody, and then I'll stop talking about lighting. Although I love talking about lighting. I just ordered. Okay, I'm going to talk about lighting a little bit more. I have a light mat. Fuck this, man. I'll just show. I don't know why I'm being so precious about this thing. screwed up. I can't show you. It would take too long. But a light mat, it's a flexible mat of light. And it arrived broken. So I've got it, sitting there doing nothing while they tell me it's going to take months for them to replace it. But I did order some tubes to get on the big old tube train. Everybody loves a light tube now, right? Like I've got a couple of the little ones, probably downstairs. Got one here. I can't show you this one because it's. Trust me, I have light tubes. But I'm going to get the nice, 4 foot. I got the nice 4 foot ones coming. So, I'll be able to have essentially light tubes running up the shelves behind me and be able to give like accent tint kind of stuff going on there. Like subtle. What I call subtle, which is probably like really over the top and ridiculous. Right? Okay. Hi, Pivy. Hi, Jeff. Good to see you. Stacy, good to see you. I've gotten like a couple of emails from people over the past week or so. I've been, down, I suppose. Not really interacting with people very much, so, forgive me. I don't really interact with people even when I'm not down. My depression usually comes from loneliness, and then if I'm not lonely, then I'm like, I invest. I'm one of those people who just invests all their time in their partner, and just like, okay, well, once I have a partner, then that's great. I realize it's a risky thing to do, right? It makes it so that once you're not with somebody, then you're vulnerable to this kind of thing. But it basically means like there's never really a great time to be around me. Stacy, Jeff, Pivy, Amy, good evening, Amy, Hollow Fox, how are you doing? Morning coffee. I'll tell you, I've been so a lot of people got used to Ubering all the time, like for stuff over and over. I've been very much trying to break myself of that habit by making sure that I like go out in the mornings to get something. And there is a coffee place that just like the difference between good coffee and Starbucks coffee is just they shouldn't even really be allowed to, they shouldn't be called the same thing. They shouldn't both be allowed to be called coffee. And I was, I've allowed myself to become sucked into what Starbucks calls coffee, which, whatever, it provides caffeine and it does have some coffee flavor. But you go to like a real coffee place and it's just like, man, you get a coffee there, it's like a meal. Hear the helicopters? Bingo. Helicopter coming over. Why did I bring that up? Oh, because morning coffee, right? Yeah. So I have coffee every morning as well. Double shot latte. I had been doing skim milk, but I'm up to 2%. That's because I'm trying not to eat food in the morning, but instead just get some fat from the milk. I'm playing around with my diet as I embark on an exercise journey that, like, 6 months ago, had you told me that I was going to, well, maybe 8 months ago, had you told me that I was going to do this, I would have told you to fuck right off, and that there was no way that I was ever going to lift things for any kind of pleasure. But this was my helicopter. This is my late midlife crisis was trying to have some kind of control over just how floppy I was becoming, which is quite floppy still. Like, but I have been able to offset that floppiness somewhat, I guess is a way to say it. I don't know. I know it's going to bite me in the ass in a few years, right? Like, people put on muscle mass and then they don't maintain it, and it just turns into like this weird, it's more matter to turn into droop, which, whatever. Why do I care? I'll tell you why I care. I care because I'm fucking 50 and I don't have a life partner. So, like, there is still, I'm not going to apologize for wanting that, right? Like, that's, everybody should be able to strive for it. Like, we're not going to get it, probably, right? I forget what show I was watching or whatever, where it was basically like, well, it eventually works itself out because the older you get, the more desperate you get. So eventually, everybody ends up with somebody. But I suck. I'm a crotchety person, difficult to live with. You'd never guess it. That's why everybody leaves me. It's fine. It's fine. I don't mind being left. Every door that closes, a window opens. Right? Whatever. Stacy. Oh, I'm sorry about your dad. Died before 70. That's pretty young. I mean, especially nowadays, right? That's, yeah, exactly right. I've been alerted of some changes going on with the way YouTube is doing things, so I'm not surprised that y'all are seeing some differences on your end too. I have some access to like some interesting different analytics that I never had access to before, which is neat. It's cool. Whatever. Hi, KJ. Hi. I mean, I said hi to Q already, didn't I? If I acknowledged you, that means hi. Warp Raven, how are you doing? Oh, wait, I gotta see your profile picture. Looks like a chainsaw. Yes. Yes, chainsaw. Hopefully not fully functioning. Yeah, the teddy bear, the zombie. Yep. Spooky season. Yep. Tell you how many times I've watched this clip. Q. What? Did I not say Q? Wait, did I say Q wrong? What did I do? What did I say? I don't know. I have no idea what I was talking about 10 minutes ago. Okay. People, okay. Yep. Going on down here. Olivia, hey, how are you doing? Yeah, if you're just tuning in, Mari Nakasawa. Sense of codependence and loss of purpose. You used to suffer from that. What's the secret? Yes, Warp Raven, I was talking about the light that half works. I mean, it all depends on who you are. And if you don't require the company of someone else to really enjoy yourself, then that's great. Yeah, I've had some of the most fun of my life too by myself, but it was usually doing things that in some way simulate the presence of other people. So it would either be like playing a game, or reading a book, or doing something that it is solitary, but it does kind of simulate in a very controlled way the presence of others. So, hey, Maddie, it's been a while, I think, that I remember. Yeah, this has been what I've been finding, and the reason that I feel like I've been able to continue is that I just feel better. So that's sort of, what I care about, and it makes me worry less about, like, it's like that thing where, they talk about it with money, sort of, right? Everybody wants fuck you money, but most people are just like, look, I just want enough money that I can live modestly, and I don't really have to worry that much about it. I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to live in a state of constant panic, constantly worrying about it. So, well, yeah, I don't know. Something happens to it. I don't know. I just know it seems like whatever I do, anytime I get into something, I start doing it, and I know this is a fallacy, but I end up seeing some article about it that says, new study shows that thing that Scott is doing is a terrible idea. Yeah, I'll tell you what, it has not lost its luster. So I got a MetaQuest 2 like a week and a half ago now. I had the kids over this weekend. I had both. That was my anxiety. Here, I'm going to talk a little bit about this. The anxiety of the absentee father who, was my life to some extent. I'm not saying that it's not like a poor me kind of thing, but I feel like something happened to the image when I was messing around with stuff, and I'm really not happy with it. But anyway, so I'm just going to live with it, I suppose. I have had like this problem since kids entered my life, where it's sort of like I'm always afraid to be the adult, like the adult in their presence, right? I'm happy to be an adult in their presence, but I don't want to be the adult. Like, I don't want to be the designated driver, right? I don't mind handling, urgent situations, unless those urgent situations are things that are happening to me, like panic attacks, right? It's like my fear is I am with my kids. I have like a terrible panic attack, or I have an arrhythmia or a stroke, something like that, like right in front of them. And like that scenario runs through my head over and over and over again. And when I was, married and had an infant, my wife, who now we're great friends, like probably my best friend is my ex-wife, which is unusual. I'm glad that it's that way, right? But I know it is unusual. I know it was really hard, and I know I was a shitty person, and it's pretty big of her, like for the sake of the kids, to have allowed me to sort of, I don't know, have I been, why do I always have, like, I'm always worried about every word that I say. She's allowed me to sort of work off my sin in a way, right? and be a part of their lives and be a part of her life too, which is great. But she used to always say, like, when we had an infant, she was like, "Well, give it some time, and that feeling will subside with time." She had one child prior to her and I being together, so she was speaking from a place of relative wisdom compared to me. But it never happened. That never happened. And even now that they're older, I still feel that exact same way. Where it's just like, oh fuck, like I do not want to traumatize these kids. And what that means is I'm just like I'm a boring person for them to be around. It's not so bad with my son, because he is let's just say, like, easily like I could just be like, "Hey, I'll give you a look at this, 2 pens and a journal. You want to write a book about a purple panther? Write a story about a purple panther." And he'll go and he'll be like, maybe he'll be like, "Well, no, I don't want it to be purple." Right. But he's always up to just like do something, and he will spend hours doing it. My daughter is more difficult to entertain. So yeah, the upshot of my sort of anxiety and phobias is that I'm just like a boring person for them to be around. So I had them, both of them, for this whole weekend, which is unusual. Usually I will have them like for a night, or I will have one of them for a couple of nights, that kind of thing. But I had them both for 3 or 4 days. And like I was dreading it. I knew I wanted it to be fun, and I wanted to spend time with them, but I was dreading it because I was just kind of like, wow, that's a long time. A lot of shit can go wrong in 3 days. Where's their mom going to be? Oh my God. Very far away. 1,000+ miles away. That's not good. So I was fairly medicated. And then, like, for the last day, like it eased up a little bit, not because I got used to it, but because the finish line was in sight. And this just sounds like a horrible thing to say. Like I was like dreading the time with them, and that wasn't the case. Like I was. There were times where I was able to forget that fear and then just be in the moment, and that was fantastic. But it was just very, very hard for me to do. So we did a lot of like things around the house. We went out a bit, but generally we were doing art projects, and Oculus, MetaQuest 2, which, so MetaQuest 2 I think has solved. So I had a Vive and I had an Oculus when it first came out, and this is almost 10 years ago now. Oh, that's what I wanted to show. Hold on, I want to show something. You will get a kick out of this. And by you, I mean, I don't know exactly who. When I say you, someone will get a kick out of this. If I can find it now. Let's see. I bet it's on your timeline, isn't it? I'll bet you it's here. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Save photo. AirDrop photo. Sorry, please talk amongst yourselves while I AirDrop this to myself. Hey, AirDrop. Dude, how many times did I have to hit that before it did it? AirDrop's supposed to be seamless. What's the problem? Okay, that's actually something different. But I want to show that too. Come on. fucking airdrop already. There we go. It sent one as a JPEG and one as a PNG. No idea why. What was I going on about? Like, what was it? I'm forgetting why this was leading into this. I had this idea, this story leading into this, and I'm not sure how exactly it was doing that. What the MetaQuest 2 has solved, in my opinion, is the accessibility part. It is wireless. It works out of the box. They have definitely mimicked Apple in that regard. And really, that was like a lot of the problem for me and these headsets. I mean, VR has been touted as like the next big thing for 30 years now. VR goggles are nothing new. And games trying to do VR is nothing new at all. There's nothing new about the MetaQuest 2. It's a multiplayer environment with accelerometers in the little handles, which are really easy to let go of. Nothing that the Wii didn't do, 20 years ago. When did the Wii come out? The Wii came out in like 2005. Or was it like 2007, 6? No, it was like 2004. Nothing the Wii didn't do, and nothing that the original Oculus didn't do. And then there were VR goggles well before the Oculus 2. So, but what they have done, and I'm not trying to like, obviously Zuckerberg can eat a dick, but they've made it easy to take it out of the box and go. The games, I don't know, man. I mean, Beat Saber is fun, and I am actually using it to do some aerobic exercise. It's not the only thing I'm doing, but it is fun, and it makes me feel like I am, doing a little bit of something. I am a terrible, terrible troll, so I enjoy going into like the public spaces and messing with people, right? But that's that's the raison d'etre of half of these things, right? So, but what they've done is like taken a bunch of disparate little, like a lot of what plagued the Oculus was sort of like, and the Vive was like this death by 1,000 cuts. Needed a super high-end PC to run this stuff. Is that death by 1,000 cuts? No, that's a pretty big slash. That is not like a paper cut. So that is major. But so you need like a super high-end PC. You'd need like obviously the goggles. All this stuff was wired at the time. So then you had to work out the interfacing between the goggles and your PC, and it was a big hassle. And some things were working, some things weren't. Now it's just all self-contained. You get it in the box. You have all the computing power that's not server side is all in the goggles. They did a good job of keeping the power drain of the wands or whatever, the controllers, really, really low. So, they run off conventional batteries, and I've been using it a lot, and it looks like they're still like have a lot of life left in them. They've done a good job, and this was done to some extent before, but they did a really good job, I think, of setting up the space that you play in. So you can set up like, a guardian space, and then you don't have to worry about running into shit. It also detects if something moves into your guardian space. So if I've like set up an area in my living room and I can't see because I've got my goggles on, and somebody pushes an ottoman in there, it will say, there's an intruder in your guardian space. It's incorporated like the ability to cast really well. So I'm definitely going to be doing that here for fun at some point. But not only that, you can cast so that you can see what the person wearing the goggles is seeing. You can cast so you can superimpose, using its object isolation, the person who's wearing the goggles then superimposed over what they're playing. You can cast that, or you can split view it. Like they really did like iron out a bunch of like the little problems that existed before. I don't understand why they made those controllers as droppable as they are. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. I don't know. But man, they're just not a good grip. You can't get a good grip on them. They're too short. Like my pinky, when you make a fist around it, like your pinky is just kind of grabbing nothing. You're just grabbing it with your 3 fingers and your thumb. The way that you can find the controllers is great. The way that you can immediately get visibility through the headset is great. The way that they have like sort of their operating system in there, I think it's really well done. The desktop that they kind of have, I think it puts paid to the idea that like people want everything to be 3D because it's a pain in the ass to do stuff that way and wouldn't want to do it for any prolonged length of time. And there was a period in time in the aughts, let's say the aughts, where it was just like, oh, why would you why would you want, these are prescriptions, but why would you want 2 pieces of paper like that when they could just be in VR, right? And then you could have like do the Minority Report thing. You know what, man? Like sometimes dead is better. Sometimes 2D is better. But they did a really good job of implementing that and exposing, in my mind, it's like, yeah, see, this is why we don't want to do everything this way. Because it's hard to imagine it being done better than this. This is something that has been like sort of talked about ad nauseum by Imagineers and speculators and VR technologists and just sort of futurists in general for a long time. And you see it come to life and you're like, okay, well, the user research on this is that it's better just to actually have it be a physical object. But I've loved it. I've loved playing it. If anybody, I know a few people here have the MetaQuest 2. Game recommendations welcomed. Like, Beat Saber is very successful from my point of view because it really plays to the strengths of the medium. I'm not interested in a game that it's like Skyrim, but VR, right? Like that kind of stuff. That really does nothing for me. Man, all right, let's see. Scroll down, as I've been talking a bunch of crap. Oh no, there's buffering going on. Butterfly Composer, it's good to see you. I thought perhaps you were angry at me. Maybe you are. Still, but glad you're here. Super hot. I have no idea what this is. I'm going to look it up immediately right after this. I could count on Butterfly Composer to come up with stories immediately. Okay, let me get down to the bottom here. Hey, Karen. Good to see you. It's been a little while for you too. Soon, I think. Like I want to be able to do like a bunch of stuff. I want to talk about format. I closed this. Yeah, I want to talk about format because I'd like to do some things a little bit different. Yes, you can queue, and I do. It has like a spacer, but it doesn't really matter. It's interesting. Like they haven't been real particular about like how you focus based on the distance from your eyes, right? It's really just kind of move it around and it will sit where it needs to sit. And you just move it around until it sits where it needs to sit. And then everything is in focus. And it's perfect. I haven't had a problem with glasses, without glasses. Been great. Wait, what? What was last week? What was going on last week? Yeah, the sandcastles, that's sort of a veiled jab at Hans Niemann and the chess cheating stuff that's going on, which I want to talk about too. I got to be careful. I got to think about like when I name these things. If people think they're, I mean, people should know by now that like it's not really going to have much of an effect of what the actual content's going to be. It might be where it starts, but it's definitely not going to be where it ends, you know. But, you know, I can say one thing about all of you.
You make me want to be a better man.
Old as balls. So someone said super hot. Yeah, okay. Warp Raven, super hot. Anybody else? Well, I don't think VR has caught on the way that I think people have imagined that it would. It may still, but I ultimately, right, like the hardware is gonna hit some kind of insurmountable barrier, as long as there is a thing that needs to be worn on your face like that. Oh man, this makes me feel like shit. Oh God, are you able to give an update on that? I would love to know. Hey, Yolanda. Yeah, sure, I've heard about it. But who cares? Like, honestly, I don't care about that stuff. Really, like, also try guys. Like, I don't know what they do. I'm sure they're fantastic. I'm sure they're wonderful. Apparently, the leader of the Try Guys cheated on his wife with someone who was part of the production crew, and they kicked him out. It's great. Kick him out. Oh man, is there buffering going on like crazy tonight? I really feel like I need to have a chat with my ISP, because that's really annoying, and it's happened a lot lately. Yeah, this is true. So that's a game that very much would work well, right? Because you don't have to, like, it's not really about the motion, right? So you could get around that. One of my problems is like when you take these open world games and you port them to VR, and you either have, you know, you have the problem with prolonged playing leading to motion sickness, or you have to go with like the teleport node based travel kind of thing. But the Oberdin would probably be great in VR. Although, let's see. Yeah, it would be really good because there's the part of the Oberdin. I mean, naming the people wouldn't be great. The part of playing Oberdin is being very aware of your surroundings. So when you're in those like little flashbacks, yeah, it would be really good, I think. Y'all are really into the Try Guys stuff, huh? Damn, everybody. Try Guys is right up the... Fuck that shit. Well, my understanding, I don't have that much understanding of it, but I mean, they do have like a public persona, and he was sort of like the I'm the guy who loves my wife so much, and my wife is always featured. And also, he was being, it involved someone on the production crew, I think someone who was pretty young. But anyway, I find that far less interesting than the chess cheating scandal that's going on right now. And for a bunch of reasons, right? So for those who don't know, let me show you this first. Actually, let me show you this. It has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about. It's just something that came up on my timeline, and I was like, yep, that'll be interesting. Oh, what about this? Dude, oh man, I forgot about this. So, let's see if I can get this somewhat right. All right, so get that out of my way. Yeah, obviously there was a terrible, terrible hurricane that ravaged the west coast of Florida, pretty much destroyed Sanibel Island, access certainly to Sanibel and Captiva, drained Tampa Bay, all terrible stuff. Like usually it's the east coast of Florida that gets that stuff less so, although, you know, when hurricanes make that curve, they do. It's not quite as common. But seeing the governor who has so long professed what is like one step away from, we don't need the federal government, states' rights, you know, echoing things you might have heard a few hundred years ago. Seeing him accept FEMA help and Biden specifically, like I feel like this photo op was sort of like, obviously this horrible tragedy occurred, right? And DeSantis was in communication with the White House. And in my head, right, although I feel like Biden does not have the wherewithal to do this, but in my head, Dark Brandon, let's say, gets on the phone with Ron DeSantis and says something like, "Oh, it's terrible what happened down there. Yeah, of course we're gonna help you. We're gonna give you all the federal aid that you need, access to the National Guard, FEMA supplies, everything. Of course we will. Of course we will. Yeah. Okay, we'll be right there. Oh, just one thing, Ron. I'm gonna need you to hold a press conference, and I'm gonna need you to appear at the podium thanking me for the help that I'm giving you and that the federal government is giving you. And I'm going to be standing there in my shades, rolling his sleeves. He rolled up his sleeves after this shot, while you stand there looking not that, I mean, change the hair and add a little orange and make, well, no, the open collars there, not that unlike another divisive conservative figure whose name will not be mentioned. But I could totally, like, I could feel it, like, you know, Biden is like at that moment, if he's thinking with the level of cognizance that I certainly hope that he has, and doesn't always openly display, you know, that's That's a W for him. Of course, as soon as the check is cashed, his tune is going to change. DeSantis' tune is going to change. Of course, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, I've heard about this too. Yeah, it walloped Puerto Rico. Yeah. So I don't know a whole lot about the Herschel Walker stuff. I know his son came out against him, but I don't really know that much. But I haven't been following politics that closely the last week. Here's the other thing I wanted to show. It's gonna come in big again, and I will shrink it. Is this it? No, that's not it. Literally had both of these. How did this disappear? I'm not a fan of Macs. Like, generally. Nope. It's not what I am looking for. Nope. This is not what I'm looking for. Like, by date should be the last thing or the second to last thing. Why, Mac? Why? Why are you doing this to me? It's got to be this one. No. Do I have to fucking send this again? You really going to do this to me? Ridiculous. Airdropping it again. All right. Here we go. Okay, so check this out. Yo, where did it fucking put it on my desktop? Are you fucking kidding me, man? Honestly? That is so fucking annoying. Anyway, check this out. So I think this is the 10th anniversary of this image. And this is the Elder Scrolls Online team. They're at Bethesda, gathered for, I think this might have been like a launch image or something like that. You can tell it's like a decade old by the, I don't know, pretty bad scroll at the bottom and 200,000 likes on Facebook and 100,000 followers on an old Twitter logo. Question is, can you find me? Can you find me? Where's Wally, but with me? I am here. I didn't like the idea of doing this image. I didn't fight to be near the front or anything. And in fact, you can only see the corner of my head and a bit of my mustache and beard and my hair. But I wonder if anybody can see me here. Come on. Take a close look. Look at that 2012 style going on. A lot of these people I'm still close with. A lot of them still work on the project. Okay, I'm going to give you a hint. I'm going to give you all a hint. I am on the right side, right of that. I'm to the right of that big shining, really, really bright pillar. And forward some. And there is right behind me, there's someone sticking their arm up. I don't know who that person is. No? Cannot find me, can you? Can't do it. All right. I will reveal it. Let's see if I can. Something I should have done before going live. Yes, verify Photoshop. Yes, very good. Oh, it's doing an update. Okay, this is going to be a problem. Wow, the new Photoshop opening screen shows like a superhero. Not sure why. But no luck. Nobody's been able to find me yet. That's fine. It's fine. I'm going to fix it right now. I'm going to give the solution to all of y'all. Actually, I won't give the solution. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to narrow the field quite a bit. Let's do like that. All right, let's get rid of this one. So wait, did anyone have a guess? Oh, I think yes. I think people did get me. Yep. Yeah, this is right, Alan. Right there. Right in the middle of this image, kind of. You see my head sort of tilted that way behind a Nordic looking fella. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 5 back. A lot of these people have gone on to even bigger things than Elder Scrolls. One of them became a game director at Gearbox of Borderlands. Good guy. He was my boss. Anyway, I thought that was neat. I enjoyed seeing that image and getting that. I don't usually like it when Facebook tries to it usually just kind of gets me down. It's like, remember this? And then it'll show me something. I'll be like, yeah, oh man. Those were the good old days, right? I was not, even though at the time, generally, I was not enjoying them. So it's not even a matter of like that office quote of, I wish you knew when the good old days were before you left them. It's more like, I wish I could appreciate days as future good old days instead of just constantly being in a state of, like, what's next? How can things get better? Like, in what way can I make things better? I'm on my way somewhere. Instead of just being there. People say that I do read the chat. I can't constantly be looking at the chat. So anyway, okay. I've been thinking about death quite a bit, as you do. And sort of like what it takes, why, and yes, I always like try and take the Epicurus motto of when we are here, death has not come, and when death has come, we are not here to heart. But there's some crossover there. There's a period where Death is coming. Death is at the door. And you're still here. Unless you just go in your sleep in the middle of the night, in which case you did it right. But been thinking about it a lot in the terms of like, or in the framework of what could we do, or what could anyone do if it's probably not possible. Right? But what could we do, assuming someone just hasn't found the solution for this yet, to, let's say, just like slightly mitigate the effects of constantly being aware of your own demise, right? What can you do against that? Essentially, right, what every one of us is doing is just trying to distract themselves from the fact that they're going to die up until the moment that they die. And if you're really good at it, you don't even know that you're doing it anymore. Or you aren't afraid of dying anymore. Which I would always call bullshit on. Because if you really weren't afraid of it, well. And one of the things that like became pretty apparent to me is like, it seems like there, obviously with Roe v. Wade being overturned, there was a lot of discussion about like what constitutes life. I don't have much, personally, I don't like have a lot of, the idea of like the sanctity of human life is not really like a big thing for me. I don't really have that. Just as a broad principle, right? Like I don't think that it's like, okay, well, you have brain activity at this point, therefore you have human life, or, human life should be the most important thing, and extending human life should be the most important thing that we're all trying to do. It's arguably, the source of a lot of our problems. People will always say stuff like, we didn't have X, Y, or Z issue 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. We've introduced these things into our lives, and they have caused increased rates of heart disease and cancer and ischemic attacks, strokes, whatever. Without taking into account the fact that lifespans were ridiculously short just a few thousand years ago. If you draw that line right at the invention of antibiotics, and that was even more recent. Right? So everything is like in a matter of degrees, right? It's something that wouldn't, if you were, say, a nutritionist in the Stone Age, right? You'd probably be like, yeah, eat as much fat as you possibly can. And oh my God, if you find sugar, eat as much of that sugar as you possibly can. Because within the span of our expected lifetimes, that stuff's not going to kill you. Something else is going to get you first. So as our lives get longer, right, we start to reveal these things that perhaps we promoted for our health, because within a certain time frame, it's like a comet hitting the Earth, right? Like in 100 years, it's almost unheard of. In 1,000,000 years, it's probably inevitable, or a couple million years, something like that. Now, obviously, like we haven't extended our lifetimes in the order of magnitude of that, right? But there are things that it's come to light that now that we're the average age. The average life expectancy in the U.S. at least is, like 78, 76 for men, 78, 80 for women, something like that. Right? Things that would kill you at 60 or 70 weren't really a factor, a few hundred years ago. So in thinking about that, it was sort of like, well, okay, yeah. And this has also caused other problems, right? It's caused problems of fear of retention loss, accumulation leading to greed and defensiveness, and that mechanism that kind of kicks in when you have spent a lot of time doing X, Y, or Z, or achieving X, Y, or Z, and you're now at risk of losing it. So when you're, obviously, and I'm not just talking about cognitively here. Obviously, this analogy doesn't work for a newborn baby because cognitively they're not there. But a newborn baby hasn't accomplished very much. They're not really looking at the 9 months in the womb and being like, oh, that was something. I can check that off my bucket list. And I guess it depends how you look at life, right? You look at life as like something as, here are a set of things I want to be sure that I do before I die, experiences I want to have before I die. That's one thing. If you're accumulating, if you're the type of person that sort of accumulates, then the idea of death becomes more and more frightening the more and more that you accumulate. The more skills that you have, the more money that you have, the more things that you have, the more repetitive things that are not like single tasks that you accomplish, but are instead things that become habits, and then things that you become accustomed to, and then things that you don't want to lose, the more and more your worldly attachments grow. So it becomes like this kind of Jenga tower, because of course, obviously, the older you get, I don't know if y'all know this, but the older you get, the greater the chances are that you're going to die. So those two things work at odds with each other. Right? You've learned Japanese. You've learned French. You're a polyglot. You've mastered the piano. These are wonderful accomplishments that have uses in the world every day, and it's easy to become attached to those things. So, obviously the solution there is not, well, just don't do anything. It could be, right? That could be a very Buddhist way of looking at it. Would be, well, don't be attached to anything. Don't do anything. Harm nothing, right? But also be attached to nothing. Could be a good TM way of approaching it. But it's not very American. American would be, accumulate as much as you possibly can. And if someone threatens it, even if that someone is the inevitability of the DNA encoding us in our telomeres wearing out, that is the enemy, and let's temporarily fight against it. And then bring up that Onion article about world death rate holding steady at 100%, and then laugh to ourselves. And that's exactly why I was so ticked off about the Hans Niemann chess cheating incidents. Let's call it incident, but assume it sort of includes everything that reprehensible, arrogant, but 19-year-old kid has done. So for those of you who don't know, you probably don't care, but for those of you who don't know, Hans Niemann is a grandmaster, and he's 19 years old, been playing, is a chess prodigy. Like, there's no question that the guy's a chess prodigy, right? And once you get beyond memorizing theory, I think chess is a pretty decent metric, maybe as decent as any others that we have for measuring a certain kind of intelligence. The ability to sort of the ability to problem solve future states and strategize future states with a high degree of variability, and to be able to account for those things with sort of complex motion, asynchronous sort of turn-based play that makes it impossible for you to know what the other person is thinking, and just the sheer amount of movement variability that's afforded by an 8x8 board, with pieces that move in all sorts of different ways. Although, from a computer's point of view at this point, chess is pretty much tic-tac-toe, with every game resulting in a draw. And the irony there, which I obviously talked about last week, was that when Deep Blue defeated Garry Kasparov, there was a giant scandal about, there must have been a human helping the computer. And now in this case, it is, of course, the computer helping Hans Niemann. So everybody who follows chess, at least, right, knows about Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen, probably the greatest chess player ever to live. Probably. Really, it's really hard to know, right? The tools that are available for Magnus are not the same as the tools that were available for people playing chess 100, 500 years ago. So it's, the comparison is maybe not even that productive. Wow, it sounds like it's hovering right over my house. Dude, no. It's shaking. Stuff is shaking. Can you see? Okay. Doppler effect has informed me that the helicopter did not land in my backyard. Felt like it was gonna. Anyway, so Magnus Carlsen, fantastic chess player, rated 28 something. Basically, when it comes to the first 20 some odd moves of chess, he has everything memorized. He doesn't really need to think or strategize that much for those first 20 moves, especially if he's playing other grandmasters, they're generally playing theory. He's going to be playing theory in response. And then really, most of these games come down to, is it a draw or not? Right? A protracted end game kind of thing. A past pawn race. And he has been sort of chess.com's darling boy, especially during the pandemic when, just like every other sort of competitive online thing that you could imagine, all of that spiked during the pandemic. Chess was no exception. A lot of money being made by people, and then a lot of people sort of that competition was really good for just chess in general, right? You have a lot of people now, a lot more people now who are higher rated than ever in the past. And you could say that it's hard to know, because we didn't have a global database tracking everyone who played chess in the past, and that's certainly true. But we also didn't have that kind of global competition going on that was fueled by, what could we have that would fuel that would be really effective, more effective than maybe bragging rights about being a better player than your uncle. Well, we have money, and we have fame, and we have streaming stardom. So there is a burgeoning cottage industry, not even a cottage industry, around streaming chess. And it's really kind of come to the forefront in the past few years. Hans Niemann was, playing competitive chess in 2017. I think as far back as 2015. Which is crazy to me to think that 2015 is a long time ago. It's really weird. It's fucking bizarre, man. 2015 was a long time ago. That's almost a decade ago. Ugh. It's depressing. Anyway, the incident that sparked this incident anyway was a game between Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen, one where Hans Niemann beat Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen responded with a sort of veiled, he dropped out of the tournament, first of all, after losing to Hans Niemann. And then he made a sort of veiled, he posted a video of a football coach saying, I can't say anything or I'll be in big trouble. He basically tacitly accused Hans Niemann of cheating. And Hans Niemann has admitted to cheating. And in a video, he admitted to cheating when he was 12 and when he was 17 in like 2 or 3 matches or something like that. And that was after all this came out, right? And it was none of these were over the board matches. These were online chess matches. And Magnus Carlsen did not believe that. And a lot of other people weighed in and basically said, like, the way that one chess.com, so somehow Hans Niemann disappeared for like a year from competitive chess, right? Online chess. And it wasn't known at the time, but the reason that he was not there was he was banned for cheating. And so everybody kind of knew it, right? But nobody knew it. But I mean, it was obvious, right? And then he comes back and he's playing really, really strongly, right? And it's interesting because chess was very much like, when we were talking about like the Turing test for AI and Deep Blue and Garry Kasparov, like chess is a very fertile place for AI to play around in. You might even say, like, in a lot of ways, like I said, it's almost like tic-tac-toe. It's not really, it is AI in the broadest sense of like AI, but it's rules-based, essentially. Like you're just kind of extrapolating out a finite set of possible moves, and there's a finite set of pieces. And, if you have enough computing power, it is just like tic-tac-toe, right? You can just kind of take every game to a draw. Humans can't do that. Like, we just can't. It can't happen, right? So when you see, and there's an interesting thing that goes on, right? You have now these people playing so much online chess and so many databases being filled of like all of these chess games and so many data points showing like how people play, the accuracy of their play, like versus like what the ideal move would be, right? Styles of play, the way they react in certain situations. There's all kinds of data that can be gotten from these hundreds and hundreds of games that we have on everyone who's a participating grandmaster right now has this footprint, has this digital footprint of their online games and their OTB games, because those things are logged too. Like you can't escape just by not playing online chess, right? Like if you're playing in a tournament, that's getting entered into a database somewhere. So one of the things that like stood out for Hans Niemann was that, you can take somebody's rating, their ELO rating, right? And then you can kind of measure it against how closely that player cleaves towards the best possible move in a given situation. And that's been done for like tons and tons of players. And you can see that like, the higher your ELO, the more likely you are to play what the best, stockfish would play. So even for the best players, and it varies like from game to game, but on average, even from the best players, that comes out to like something like 72%, something like that. That's where Magnus Carlsen was. In fact, Magnus Carlsen was even a little bit lower. And you can play a game. Sure, you can play a game, and you can. A lot of it depends on what your opponent does, right? Like if you have an opponent who's sort of a lame duck, then you can kind of, it's much easier for you to play what the engine would play, right? Or what's considered like the perfect response to what your opponent does. Much easier to do that in those situations, right? Where someone makes a blunder and allows you to pull off the Queen's Gambit, something like that, right? Or the Scholar's Mate, like some ridiculously rudimentary chess trap. then in those cases, yeah, then it's really, really easy to stay much closer to what the perfect game would be. But if it's a grandmaster playing against another grandmaster, that becomes, it's just another ball of wax. It's one of the reasons, grandmasters are reluctant in tournament play to play anyone who's not already rated as a grandmaster. They'll play blitz chess against whoever. And I don't know why I enjoy watching blitz games where a grandmaster will be playing 5 or 6 people at the same time and just sort of destroy them all and barely even look at the board. A lot of that times, in those cases, it's because they're playing theory. They're not actually calculating what is the best move. They already know what the best move is. It's clear what the response is. And there's some variation, but the e-file pawn, going out, right? There's a clear response to that if you're just looking to win. But yeah, for some reason I get off on watching that happen. And I've worked on, I think my fascination with chess, if you can call it fascination, came from working on chess games, working on doing art for chess games and some design for chess games. That was back in the 90s, man, like the end of the 90s. A game called Grandmaster Chess, and what was one of the strongest chess engines at that time. So for me, it's pretty fascinating. But I like looking at the crossover of chess and AI and how it's easy, or it's not easy, but a lot of people, when this Hans Niemann stuff broke, were like, okay, Magnus Carlsen is being a bit of a diva here. Like he's kind of taking his queen and going home. Just because he was beaten by somebody, right? Then he's basically saying, I don't want to play anymore because I was beaten. But it's really clear that Magnus Carlsen is like a once in a generation kind of player. And if you're playing at that level of play, you have a lot of the same intuitive distinctions that you can make intuitively that these databases might make by actually showing, like, statistically, here is what happens when X, Y, or Z happens. So when Magnus Carlsen originally accused Hans Niemann of cheating, and a lot of people were like, oh, well, he's just, saying that. And I'm being consistent here. If you go back to the last episode or the episode before it where this broke, it was clear to me, like, I absolutely believe that Magnus Carlsen was able to detect that Hans Niemann was cheating by inconsistencies in the way that he played. Playing perfect moves or near perfect moves without having to think about it, right? I definitely believed that Magnus Carlsen was not just like taking the queen and going home. He was on something, right? And it was already clear that Hans Niemann had cheated in the past. But then what finally came out, and this just came out yesterday or today, chess.com finally came out and was like, yeah, Hans Niemann has cheated much more than he has admitted to. Like he did an interview where he was basically said, like, he cheated once when he was 12 and once when he was 16, and he hasn't cheated any other time, and he's never cheated in OTB chess. It's only ever been online chess, and never in like tournaments where there was money involved. All of those things were lies. Now, the only one that still hasn't been proved is whether or not he has cheated in over-the-board chess. But he definitely has. This is let's see. So chess.com published a 70-plus page report today or yesterday. It was yesterday. Basically confirming that, like, from all of the data that they have, it's clear that Hans Niemann is not to be trusted. Right? Now, whether that means they were not able to go so far as to say that they were able to prove that Hans Niemann cheated in the over-the-board chess match against Magnus Carlsen. A match where he afterwards repeatedly, or apparently he said, oh, well, I happened to study the exact opening that Magnus did, so I knew the best moves. And like this is how he was this is how he was explaining his 90-something% accuracy, right? And he was like, oh, that morning I happened to study the exact same opening that Magnus played, implying that like Magnus played that opening a lot and he was sort of studying to the test, right? But that wasn't true, right? Like the actual game itself wasn't an opening that Magnus had played very often. In fact, it was like very rare. So like statistically, the odds of that happening, super, like it's just a chain of like really statistically unlikely events that any one of them alone, you might say, well, okay, that's an anomaly. But you have like this string of things, and then you pair that up with the fact that Hans Niemann has cheated and then lied about the way that he cheated in the past. And it just, I don't really know what this is just, we got to find the smoking gun. Like this is enough circumstantial evidence and real evidence, but circumstantial evidence for OTB play that he shouldn't be allowed to be playing in any kind of tournament like that. Until they can find, they need to be able to, like, I don't know what metal detectors can or cannot detect. I don't know if it's possible to create a simple Morse transmission system that could go undetected by like TSA level equipment. I don't know that. Apparently, like he's willing to do that stuff. He hasn't commented on it yet. He hasn't commented on this report. He has not commented on Magnus Carlsen's accusations. In the match where he beat Magnus Carlsen, he was asked about the game, and his only response was, "Chess speaks for itself." And he walked off. And that's the thing to do. If you're cheating, stonewall. Like, don't give any information, because when he did give information about how he only cheated in like these certain times, pardon me, I wonder what's going on. Sirens and helicopters. Huh. When he did open his mouth, one, like his analysis was weak and was further evidence that like he didn't really know what he was talking about. And at some level, right, like, I mean, he is a grandmaster, right? So he can speak to what he knows. And I think that like the danger, there's almost like a little bit of the, there's a little bit of like the Trump syndrome here, right? Where it's like, yeah, Trump was a fucking terror and he was horrible. But like, imagine someone with no compunction, right? Like Trump. No sociopathic like Trump, but also savvy and intelligent, right? Unlike Trump. I guess you might be able, you can say that Trump is savvy. I don't know, you could say he's intelligent. Your mileage may vary. But the sort of, the fear from all this is like Hans Niemann, like once, and I'm just talking about like this as if it's true, because I don't see any way for it not to be true. Like the evidence to me is just overwhelmingly against him. Hans Niemann, instead of, for instance, like when he was getting, however he was able to be fed these moves, and there's a lot of ways that could have happened, right? Instead of, say, in a particularly difficult position, taking some time and acting like he was really thinking over what he was doing, he would just do the move. Like it was nothing. Right? And that kind of stumped me for a while, because I kept thinking to myself, like, why would he do that? Like if he were cheating, wouldn't he like really want to act and really make it seem like he was really thinking about what he was doing and what he was playing? Like, why would he just, he gets put in an incredibly difficult position where he has to think several moves ahead, and there's a lot of possibility on the board, right? And he just makes like a move like really, really quickly. And it is a move that happens to be like exactly what the chess engine would say is the best move. Wouldn't he just like sit there for a while and act like he's like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do here. Oh, geez. Oh my God, I just saw something, right? Like, wouldn't that happen? Like, if he didn't want to be caught, wouldn't he fake some of that? And so some of the reports have been, or other grandmasters who've weighed in have been like, well, wait till we get someone who is legitimately playing at 2,600 plus, and they don't really need to cheat more than maybe twice in a game. They maybe only need like the most difficult point. There may only be one point in the game that they need a move fed to them, right? Other than that, they can play all above the board. When you're at that level of play, right, the tiniest advantage is going to tip the game in your favor. And then they won't need the help. They don't have to, like, they're good enough that they don't have to worry about blundering, right? It's just a matter of like, okay, what's the actual winning move at this critical juncture? And then once that's made, I can take care of it from there. Thank you for that one Morse coded message that you sent to me. That's all I need to now win the game. So I was thinking about that with Hans, and I was just sort of feeling like, well, this is almost like evidence that he didn't cheat, because otherwise he would have done this, wouldn't he? And then I immediately thought like, no, man, that's hubris. And that's also being 19 years old. Right? That's just like fucking, and it also has to be said, we don't yet know the method of communication that was used. And it's possible that it wasn't as reliable. Like he was that 3 buzzes or was that 4 buzzes? Shit. Like that kind of thing could have gone on. And as someone who maybe wasn't really invested in the game, right, he wouldn't have been analyzing it as it went on to even necessarily be able to know when these critical moves were, where he would have needed to fake taking a really long time to do whatever it is. I don't know why I still have this up. I'm not really referencing it. Let me turn it off because it's super bright. And yet he's a good enough player that he really should have known that stuff. But when you're at that level of play, right, then only someone else who is at or near that level of play would be able to see those things. So maybe he didn't know where those points were. Maybe it was the hubris of being 19 years old and then being like, man, I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna, how I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna be an enigma. I'm gonna be the new Bobby Fischer. It's just reprehensible. I'm looking at the chat. I'm guessing like nobody cares about what I'm doing. Let's see. Anyway, this has been my, I guess my rant about the situation. Yeah, right? Like it has been pretty bad this evening. Okay, should I keep going on about this? I feel like if we just look at what the conclusion was, right? They present evidence that Hans likely cheated online much more than his public statements suggest. So his public statements were that he cheated when he was 12 and when he was 16, or when he was 12 and he was 17. Stupid thing to do, right? Stupid thing to say that when it wasn't true, because in a way you're forcing chess.com's hand. He's had a record-setting and remarkable rise in rating and strength. Of course he has. There is a lack of concrete statistical evidence that he cheated in his game with Magnus or any other OTB game. Okay, like that's just going to be a matter of time. And ultimately, I think what it's going to be is like either somebody comes forward, right? Maybe that happens. Or they're basically like the odds of this happening are astronomical, like so astronomical that we're just going to say that, it's beyond reasonable doubt, right? We were never pressured by Magnus or his team to remove Hans from chess.com, revoke his... I mean, Magnus is like an international star. He's definitely like driving chess.com's value up through the roof, right? That said, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's probably a terrible person too, but he doesn't really strike me as a cheater. So we uninvited Hans from our upcoming major online event and revoked his access to our site based on our experience with him in the past. Growing suspicions among top players and our team about his rapid rise of play. Okay. Like he just went from being like a 2200 to a 2500 without because he was banned, like there wasn't a way to track his ascendancy. And even if there was, like that was really fast, right? Okay. In order to have more time to investigate the OTB situation and our own internal concerns, we uninvited Hans from our event and prevented his access to chess.com. Definitely the right move, right? Open to continue a dialogue with him. So they showed some of like the DMs between I think the CEO of chess.com and Hans. And it seemed like if anything, like they were, like chess.com was way too lenient on what they were essentially allowing to happen unchecked. And I'm sure a lot of that came from the fact that, a lot of that came from the fact that, these stories generate interest generates money, chess.com likes money, right? Like simple as that. Do I have yes, I have. Yeah, okay, Danny Wrench is the guy I'm talking about. They call him Chief Chess Officer. Yeah, and they go into this is nuts. Look at this. Look at this. Let me hide this. Okay, so this is Hans in discussion with the chief chess officer, which I don't know what that really translates to. Is that the same as CEO? I don't know. So Hans just saw this sometime from now until 1:30. They're going to Zoom. All right, talking 15. They talk, and then I guess it looks like Hans must have lost connection. Okay, so he was given the diamond, the title, upgraded his ratings to 2,500, updated his affiliate. So now he can do his Twitch streams, which is kind of like, what he wants to do. He never he was supposed to write a written statement about his cheating to chess.com, which he never did. And then he tried to get back on to chess.com sooner than he was supposed to. And they didn't let him, right? Which they shouldn't have. And it's interesting when they talk about like how cheat detection works in this document. It's again, this is what AI is good at. Comparing moves made to engine recommended moves, removing some moves, focusing on key and critical moves, discussing with a panel of trained analysts and strong players, comparing past performance and known strength profile, comparing a player's performance to performances of comparable peers, looking at the statistical significance of the result, for example, 1 in a million chance of this happening naturally, looking at if there are behavioral factors at play, that is to say browser behavior. So like if you're playing online and it looks like, they can tell if you're clicking away from the tab that you're in. Reviewing time usage when compared to the difficulty of moves on the board. That's one of the biggest blunders it seems like he made, right? Like he wasn't faking it enough. Chess.com employs highly rated Grandmaster Fair Play analysts precisely because there are so many situations where humans are required to understand how human versus computer a move actually is. Human chess and computer chess are different, even at the highest level. The best humans play at an ELO of about 2,800. Stockfish, the most powerful chess engine, has an estimated rating of more than 3,500. And there's a huge difference between 2,750 and 2,800. There's a big difference there, right? So Stockfish is, 700 ELO points over the highest rated chess players. In a theoretical match between world champion Magnus Carlsen versus Stockfish, the estimation is that Magnus Carlsen would lose every single game. 0 wins, 0 draws. So, when you're doing this kind of comparison with like engine play versus human play, it's not a subtle thing. Now maybe, there's some very, very small chance that Hans Niemann is like an alien and his brain is, he's doing that beautiful mind thing. That's what Magnus does, right? And the fact is that it's like with a piece of art, right? Like you don't trust just the art just because you look at it and it's like, oh, this looks like it is, something that done by Van Gogh, right? Like provenance is important, and having some kind of paper trail leading up to show that you are where you are by virtue and not by underhanded bullshit. That's all part of it. There's another one. That's like the fourth. That's the fourth chopper that I've heard. Damn. Thoughts on the dream face reveal? Whoa. You're mad at me. Oh, good for him, I guess. There's definitely some shit going down. I wonder if I should check. Let me just be sure there's not a riot happening in DC right now. Oh man, comes up with Sanibel Island wreckage. I used to go to Sanibel Island when I was young. U.S. believes elements within Ukraine's government authorized assassination near Moscow, sources say. You don't say. No, it doesn't look like there's a... Are you fucking kidding me? Wow. They're going to finish filming Rust, that movie where Alec Baldwin shot and killed the director of photography. Shocking, actually. I am shocked about that. That's almost as shocking. Nico, I find chess to be like, well, I mean, one, I was a game designer for a really long time. And I find chess to be like possibly like the perfect game. Certainly one of the greatest games ever. But one of the things that I find interesting about it is that because it has a finite set, in theory, like you're able to like detect these things. It's not like there's no die rolling, right? This is getting to be something. Yeah, neither did I. Okay, let me get down to the bottom here. I'm not gonna talk about chess anymore. Oh, well, that's super. Well, Q, if you wanted me not to talk about chess, bringing up Dream was not the way to do it. Bring up Jordan Peterson. What about Elon Musk? He's now going to be forced. He is going to have to buy, like, anybody who thinks like this now, okay, yeah, I'm going to buy Twitter now, right? That's not like him resigning. As if that place was not, I mean, it will be like the one thing that he's followed through on of the many, many things that he has done halfway and then abandoned, or things that he has picked up that were 3/4 of the way done and then he walked them across the finish line. I'm not going to talk about chess anymore. I do want to talk a little bit about like the format of this going forward. I'd like to do something where it's like there is actually like okay, this is the rant part. This is where, maybe there is something integrated, like just kind of have this separated into more of a formula so that I can not worry about it quite so much. And I know what I need to do to prepare. Oh, good night, Olivia. Thank you for hanging out. I mean, I assume that, Q. I assume that. And then I was even thinking, like, yeah, it would be good because part of the reason, like, I feel like I get part of the reason I feel like I get value out of doing this is when something is going on. I have not heard this level of activity in months. Like, this is January 6th level of what I was hearing. There's gotta be. DC deputy mayor charged with assault and battery after gym parking lot altercation? I don't think so. Woman hit and killed crossing street in Northwest DC? No. I mean, it could be just like maneuvers, Just want to be sure there's nothing I need to make sure I shouldn't be in the basement. I mean, I don't know if those are, CIA choppers or White House choppers. No idea. Biden fly back from Florida this evening, maybe? That could be it. Let's see. I wish I could track Biden's plane. Okay, let's see. The live tracker for Air Force One. Holy crap. Good Christ on a crutch. This is nuts. Oh yeah, it's like showing me. Oh, this is interesting. Plane finder. Very interesting. A F1, right? Isn't that the code for Air Force One? It's just AF1. Or am I wrong? Well, don't know. The skies are definitely crowded, but they're always crowded here, so this is not going to tell me anything. Isn't going to tell me anything great. Yeah, my issue with this is just that, like, I'm not great at committing to stuff, you know. But that's something that I want to do. I would love to yeah, like I had more oomph and energy back when, you know, during the first couple dozen episodes of this, and I would kind of go out of my way to like ask people to be on it, and I ran into most people didn't want to do live stuff. Like I had some people who were like, yeah, okay, I'll do it, but I want to pre-record it. And I didn't want to do that. And then for a lot of people was like timing, right? Most people in England and or France, etc. Well, Behind the Moons did it, right? In spite of the time, I'd reached out to Maxence, Made in France, and who I love, right? And he wanted to pre-record something. Right? I just want to like wing it, you know. Wait, what is... I'm not sure. I mean, I still talk to people, right? It's just like I kind of have to be in the right mood, you know? And what I've been working on, I've actually been working on music stuff. I want to get to a place where I have... I used to be at a place where I had like at least 50 songs that I could just play, just me and a guitar, and I could play like coffee shops and stuff, and that required, you know, practicing them, and so I'm trying to get that list back up, so that maybe, but that hasn't really nothing to do with this show, except that maybe I would include some of that practice here, although who knows, like I don't know how. Let's see, you know what I'm working on now. Just crank up. All I gotta do is crank up that reverb. Oh yeah. Crank up the reverb. Crank up the air. I love that reverb. So I'm trying to work up my repertoire to be at least 50 songs. And I'm not going to play this. because it's not ready yet, but I'm trying to get back up to where I was with the song that I was working on today. I wonder if any of you can guess it from the guitar part. So it's a little different, but this is how it goes. See, I messed up already. This way. Kind of sounds like an Elvis song almost. Now, this is a little bit generic, but then there are parts that are a little more signature. Especially this part coming up. No, I would not attempt a Jeff Buckley song. I can't do that. But no, that is, well, no, I don't know any Porcupine Tree songs offhand. I hate the fact that this is an Eric Clapton guitar. If only I had known what a dick he was when I bought it. But the thing is, I love it. Like, it's just, it plays so well for an acoustic, so simply, so easily. Okay, so I'll give you another hint. I'll give you a line from it. I can feel the soil falling over my head. Anybody? No? And as I climb to an empty bed, oh well, enough said. Not saying the name of the song. I don't know where else I can go over. There you go. That's right, Nasha got it. Yeah, now everybody got it. I know it's over, but still I cling. And I don't know where else I can go. Over, 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 over. I know it's over, but it never really began. But in my heart, it was so real. And you even spoke to me and said, if you're so funny. I don't have it down yet, so I don't want to go too far into it. Teenage nostalgia. But yeah, so I want to do, let me turn this, sorry. All right, better. Turn that down a little bit too. Okay. I want to just kind of separate stuff out a little bit more. It's weird. When you have reverb on and then you turn it off, it sounds really, really weird, dry and strange. But anyway, yeah, so the songs that I'm working on, just so I can like have them in my quiver, I would like to be able to like play live again at some point. I don't know. I don't want to drink. So that's the problem there. Yeah, it's a bad one. I'm hugely fond of the live version that is on Rank. I much prefer that to, I think, the Queen is Dead version. It's incredible and just, yeah, fucking devastating. And it does it like that simple, it does a weird, like that looping pattern. So it's a looping pattern that's like, so it's that stuff. Johnny Marr always does that. Like he'll do like a phrase over changing bass notes, and it just sounds amazing, especially because like in this loop he'll starts at C, which it fits very well with C. F, it fits very well with F. Now on G it's a little bit out of character, it's like a little bit minor. But now instead of going back to C, he goes to A minor, which it fits perfectly with, but going from that to that kind of gives it that melancholy. And then back to C. But then instead of going to A minor the second time, he goes to E minor, which is really weird. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting. So he's going like, starting here, playing a bunch of stuff, coming back to here, playing a bunch of stuff. So it's like, dun, dun, dun. And he would come back to C. And then A minor. And back to C. And now to E minor. And there he changes it. So it's like, it's just like, I mean, he does that in Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. Johnny Marr is just amazing with a guitar, like what he can bring out of it. Yeah, I am totally with you, Nasha. Like Johnny Marr's guitar playing is sublime, next level. Yeah, dude. What, you mean you haven't heard the news, Warp Raven? I gotta look this up again. Oh my God, look at this. You're gonna love this. Oops. No, you go away. Fucking right in the middle of my screenshot, an ad popped up. You never heard this news, Warpray? Well, I'm about to drop on you here. My full name and everything. Damn, do I cringe when I read this a little bit? Maybe, but I also thought it was kind of neat. 2005. It was almost 20 years ago. It takes a lot of balls to get up on stage all by your lonesome, especially when in your past life as the lead singer of a band you were known for being a reluctant frontman. That's just like code for stared at my shoes. Such is the case for erstwhile vocalist, bassist for wrong. Admit to struggle and disconnect. Scott Nixon, who comes out of his shell a few times each year, shares incredible voice and songs in a vein similar to country alt-rockers Whiskey Town and San Francisco's Red House Painters. Like, that's really on the nose. Really on the nose. Although Nixon has said he's never considered himself a singer, true, his emotional delivery always seems to hit home with his audiences. Which is why catching him solo is both a welcome Ed Metusa struggle flashback, comforting reminder there's life after the breakup. I think this came out in like 2005, and I stopped playing out like a month after because I just couldn't do it anymore. Everybody knows my name already. Like, see, it's not really doxing. Anna. Oh, that's nice, Anna. Well, I was in a lot of bands, Q, but like I don't really count ones that were around for like a month or even just a couple months. So, now we did open for Green Day no, it was full, but it was a tiny club. Yeah, I think my name is well known or known by people who want to know it, so I don't really care. I just don't care. And with that lack of caring, check this out.